Hi everyone, we're here at the New Orleans Botanical Garden and today we're going to espalier a citrus tree. Now, espalier is a very old technique dating back as far as Roman times, but it really became very popular in the Middle Ages. And what espalier is, in a sense, is using some sort of trellis along a wall or in a row to prune and train a young fruit tree so that it takes up less space and it's able to grow in a microclimate. These walls act as a heat sink. So if you imagine growing fruit in the Middle Ages in Northern Europe or even into parts of Italy, maybe some more delicate fruit species, having a microclimate where it stays a little bit warmer because of the sun and the heat sink of the brick wall, that would have been an advantage. So it's an old horticultural technique, but it's also a very beautiful horticultural technique. This is a young clementine mandarin citrus tree. It's about 4 years old. It's been planted in this location for about a year. And this is the brand new outdoor kitchen at the New Orleans Botanical Garden. Now we're going to train it on this set of 3 guide wires, and you'll see these are nice stainless steel wires. They're anchored at, looks like 18 inches into this brick wall. So these are going to last for years and years, the life of the tree, and they're not going to go anywhere, and they're going to provide the framework or the scaffold for this tree to be trained up onto. Espalier, as a horticultural technique, is a very practical thing to do if you'd like to enjoy fruit in a very limited space or a narrow area of your garden. But in addition to being practical, it can also be elevated into an art form. Check out some of these designs. To start your espalier, you want to choose a very healthy young fruit tree, and you want to plant it where you want the trunk and leave it for about a year so that it has time to get established before you really go to town with your pruning implements. So this tree was planted roughly a year ago. It's had ample time to develop a healthy root system, lots of foliage, it's even flowering and fruiting even though it's quite young. And we're going to assess the different branches and the structure of this young tree and choose what we're going to keep and what we're going to remove. Now remember, everything that we keep is going to fit this framework. So we want parallel branches, hopefully at 2 different levels because we can reach to 2 different levels with this tree. And we're going to have a clean trunk down below that first level. So in assessing this tree, we see that we've got some rootstock emerging from below the graft, so we're going to remove that. But we've also got some low-hanging branches that we don't need, so that we'll have a nice clean trunk to about here where we meet our first guide wire. In choosing what's going to be trellised onto this first level of guide wires, I see that I have a nice healthy branch here and an opposite nice healthy branch there. So those are going to be my 2 first T branches that I'm going to go out laterally from the main leader of the trunk. This tree is full of young, tender growth. Nothing's really too woody, so I'm just using a nice pair of sharpened hand shears. We're going to remove that rootstock. Remember, always remove anything below the graft point. And we're going to remove this extra low-hanging branch that we don't need and all these little suckers, leaving us a nice, clean trunk up to where that top guide or bottom guide wire is. So that's the first step. Now that we have a nice clean trunk, we're going to train these lateral branches out away from the trunk, and we're going to tie them to those guide wires using a nice flexible, soft garden tape. What this is good for, this tree can move, it can bend in the wind if it needs to, but it's going to be anchored down and it's not going to be in danger of abrasions or maybe the string or the wire, if you're using a metal wire, cutting into the bark. We want to avoid that, so we want something very gentle. And this green garden tape fits the bill. All right, now we're going to work on this first lateral branch, and if Joe would be so kind to push the trunk towards the wall, you see that we can get this branch nice and close to that guide wire. And we're going to remove a lot of this material, but I just want to get it tied to where it needs to go first using our green tape. And we're going to do it again on the opposite side, and that's just going to be our first contact point with the trellis system. Okay, now we're going to do the other one. You see we've actually got 2 branches heading in that direction at the correct height for this guide wire. So we're going to choose the one closer to the wall and remove the other. Okay, and since we chose the one branch, we're going to remove this extra one. Okay, Joe, you can let go. Let's see. And it should be fairly stable. And we're going to add additional supports as well. So this is an extra branch here. It's kind of midway between this lower level and this mid-level, so we're going to remove this too. Okay. Looking at our first lateral branch, we want to get out away from the trunk as far as we can, which means this would be our primary branch here. I'm going to put another tie in just to kind of mark it for myself, and then I'm going to start removing the extra material. And what we're doing is essentially choosing a dominant branch to head in every direction that we want them to, and we're removing anything extra. So following these extra branches back, I'm removing those. This one's coming forward, so that's going. These ones are pointed downward, so those are going as well. Extras, little water sprouts. And we're just going to clean up everything we don't need, leaving about 2 or 3 of these smaller branches along the width of this branch. So anything pointing away from the wall or downwards automatically goes. You see we've got a lot of extra material here, and we want to follow that back to where it meets that main branch that we've chosen and remove the extra. Perfect. So this branch is good to go. We've left plenty of material pointing upwards and towards the wall that's going to fill in between these lateral guide wires. We're going to do the exact same thing on the opposite side. So we're choosing our dominant leader, which is going to be this one because it's closest and longest. And we're going to remove this extra material here because it's too far away. Remove and clean up some of this facing the wrong direction. And we're going to add an additional tie here just to give it a little more support. Keep it on that guide wire. Okay, so that's our first tier of the espalier, and we're going to repeat and do that exact same thing with the second tier because this tree is tall enough, and I'll show you how we do that. So it looks like this one's wanting to go in that direction, so we're going to choose that as our right side, and then for our left, this is the leader of the tree, so we're going to choose this one. And it's okay if you have to come back and do one side again or do it later because it's not quite big enough to reach. This is a long-term project. So this is our second tier up here. And with the second tier, it's not going to be as neat right out the gate as that first tier. So it's something we'll come back to in 6 months, say, or we'll just constantly monitor and come back as needed. Okay. Clean up this first one. Removing anything extra. We want the tree to focus its growth in that main structure and not anything that we don't need. And this is our leader, so we want to leave that alone so that we get some nice upward growth so that eventually it'll catch this third set of guide wires. And to ensure that we keep this tree moving towards the wall and upwards, we're going to take this leader branch and we're going to just temporarily tie it here to keep it going in the right direction. And we'll come revisit this later. Okay. The next step is to step back and assess what we have going on. And I see we've got another extra branch here. Remember, this is our lateral that's going to go that way eventually. This is our lateral going that way, and this is going to go upwards and do our third tier. For now, we're going to leave this tree and we're going to come back and reassess in a few months, but it's off to a great start. This is our second young tree that we're also going to espalier, so we'll have a nice matching pair of them. So we're going to walk you through the structure of this espalier tree. Being citrus trees, these are grafted, and we see our graft point here. So remember, always remove any growth coming from below this point. But we also want to remove anything else coming from this smooth trunk. We want to keep this clear so that we have our overall structure and form of the tree preserved. So always prune anything from these first laterals down. And up here we have our first guide wire and our first set of laterals heading to the left and the right. And as you can see, these guys already have a pretty good established structure to them. They've got some nice length and they're equally symmetrical. And we're just going to keep training them outwards as they grow. Then we're going to come up and keep this trunk clean to our second set of laterals. And we have a decent branch heading to the left, but if you look at our right side branch, it's pretty young and it's just starting out. There were actually 3 branches here and I chose the best candidate to become our right side lateral in the middle. I like to leave a little bit extra growth here at the top. Our leader is pointed upwards. This helps the tree to keep growing in that upward motion so that we can catch this third set of guide wires eventually. We're now finished with our second tree, and as you can see from the prunings, this is not an activity for the light-hearted gardener. You're going to remove a lot of material, but rest assured you're setting your tree up for a really beautiful system of growing, and it's going to become a piece of art and a showstopper in your garden.